I mean, we are in a day when counseling, psychiatry, I mean, we've that used to be just so kind of quiet. You know, you really didn't talk to people.
Like, oh, I'm in therapy.
Or tell somebody that you had a therapist. You know, I think about what about Bob, you know, back in the, you know, and that whole, but there was just a time when.
Have you seen that, Caleb? Have you seen What About Bob? You need to watch that.
No, but it was my parents' first date.
Oh, wow. That's an interesting choice for a first date.
You got to see that. Okay. Well, with God, there is always more. More love, more life, more freedom. Welcome to Zoweh's Exploring More with Michael Thompson. C.S. Lewis once wrote, "Our Heavenly Father has provided many delightful ends for us along our journey, but He takes great care to see that we do not mistake any of them for home." Join me and the team as we explore the kingdom together, discovering the deep truths and offering encouragement for the journey. There is always more. Welcome, friends and allies, to the Exploring More podcast. Michael Thompson here, hanging out with SJ Jennings. And I'm honored, bro. I loved our last podcast, just talking about the book King Me.
Yeah.
And you said something off camera. I am impressed. Well, that doesn't sound right. I'm impressed with us, but I'm impressed.
You can just be impressed with me.
I'm impressed with you. And Caleb, I'm impressed with you too, Caleb.
Caleb's impressive.
I am impressed at that idea, that statistic. You said that, you know, if you do, what did you say, more than 20?
Yeah, if you release more than 20 episodes of a podcast, you're in like the top 1% of all the podcasts.
Woo-hoo!
Because there's so many podcasts apparently that start and then just
fizzle.
Nah, I don't want to do this anymore or whatever, you know. And
fledgling,
yeah,
fizzle. What else?
Yeah, we're if 20 is fledgling, then we're long in the tooth, I guess. We got to be 270 something in, I would think, at this point.
Yeah, we're still practicing.
Oh yeah,
Hopefully, getting better and better. But
yeah, still figuring it.
Yeah, Caleb takes us up several notches.
He does. Serena and Brooke also. I was on the phone with a guy yesterday, actually, and he said, "Man, your voice sounds different." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, I'm used to hearing you on those podcasts, you know." And I'm like, "Thank you, Serena, for taking my voice up a notch."
Yeah,
cleaning it up, and she I don't know if she adds any, you know, bass or anything.
Yeah.
But
well, the trick too about being seen on YouTube is like, you know, your friends feel the freedom to say, "Hey, bro, you need a haircut."
Oh yeah, the commentary. So, like, oh man,
like, you know, I was getting a little.
Where'd you get that shirt?
I was going after the ponytail there for a while, and okay. between these King Me episodes,
the man bun.
Yeah, man, it was like 58. Let's go. We're going to talk about the masculine journey.
We are, yeah.
The journey of the kings today. So part 2, but yeah, anything in part 1 you want to clean up? Anything that we didn't get to?
No, I just observationally, you know, I mean, the first part is about the heart of a king. And the second part we're going to talk a little bit about today. We've done a whole podcast series on. We've done a series on the masculine journey before.
Yeah, we had.
So go back in our archives, listeners, if you haven't listened to that one. You can't really watch it. We weren't filming back then, but But the thing that occurred to me was that, you know, you can't have part 2 without part 1. You know, you really do have to get into matters of the heart, understanding how things work, wounds, vows, and agreements, and how they can affect your kingdom and your kingship.
Yeah, what we were made for.
Yeah,
why
lies of the enemy. I mean, all of that. And then now we're kind of prepared to go back through our masculine journey up to the present day, whatever that means for you.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. And those, it's interesting you brought those up because I think the fact that we've been talking about the masculine journey for a long time.
Yeah.
And those podcasts of maybe 2 years ago on the masculine journey and bringing in our friends, Tom and Greg was in this, and Jim, Gary, different guys to speak to it. I mean, this is what we do. This is what we try to do, is help men, kind of get up to this vantage point where you can see this timeline that how it should go, what the different stages look like, and we can sure talk about them. But then how did they go, and what does that mean?
Yeah.
I mean, we are in a day when counseling, psychiatry, I mean, we've that used to be just so kind of quiet. You really didn't talk to people.
Like, I'm in therapy.
Or tell somebody that you had a therapist. I think about what about Bob, back in the, and that whole, but there was just a time when.
Have you seen that, Caleb? Have you seen What About Bob? You need to watch that.
No, but it was my parents' first date.
Oh, wow. That's an interesting choice for a first date.
You got to see that.
Okay,
well,
so anyway.
They definitely laughed together. If that was their first date and they laughed together, that's probably why they're still together. So,
yeah, but I mean, it used to be kind of under the radar. You didn't want people to know that you might be talking to somebody. Yeah, and the opportunity to, examine your life, examine the storyline, examine, even just consider with that pondering what did happen? What did I get? I think of there's that so often just gets pushed to the side of, we got shiz to do, man. Oh yeah.
I mean, I live in this window of yesterday, because what I didn't get done yesterday is now on my list today, and that's gonna be tomorrow. What's never here. So that little window, that just it's like having the blinders on, and to be able to even consider, man, there's a lot. You've logged a lot of days. You are a story. You've been in a story. A lot of other characters, and not all of them good. And what is the effect of that on your heart, right? The heart of a king. And so as the book goes, it's all preparation. It's all precursor. It's all the days, right, lead up to this day when all of a sudden, as a man, you realize I'm responsible. You can measure a guy's life too in this way. It's a quick segue. What does he need to move from one state to another? Well, whatever you could get in my trunk and in my back seat in college, that was pretty much me.
Yeah, Foot Locker.
Right?
That was it.
And trash bags, So the older you get, the more sophisticated the move becomes.
Oh, yeah.
So you want to know a guy who's in the king stage? It's a guy who's got to pull up a big old truck.
Yeah.
And has people helping load.
Right.
We have a man code issue here at Zoweh. That because
once we got us to a certain age, it's like it's not worth risking our own backs.
No, once you hit 50, and one of your buddies younger typically asks you to move, as a king, you have earned the right to say, I'll give you $50 to not help move you.
Right.
And how about you ask 6 or 8 of us?
Hire a couple dudes.
That'll be $400, and we'll all watch the movers move.
That's right.
And have pizza.
And beer.
So anyway, that idea though of how much do you accumulate? How much are you responsible for, and who? I'm not just talking about your golf clubs and the stuff in the garage. I'm talking about people that now they gave you that baby to take home.
Yeah.
That lady at the altar, she's gone with you. And some guys, they're on their second one. They're blended family. They're bringing stuff and people together in a new stage, in a new phase of their life. So
2 responses to that. I love the moving truck, that analogy, because if you think about and you start doing this investigation and kind of journey into your own story, if you think about all the things that you're carrying with you, okay, well, it's not just your truck of stuff.
Yeah.
It's in your family. It's your wife. It's your daughter. It's your son.
Yeah.
And maybe the trucks are a little bit smaller because they're younger, but they all have their trucks full of stuff that they move when your kingdom moves around. And so that perspective of like, you know, okay, I've got all my stuff I got to deal with. Well, no, not as a king.
Yeah.
You know, you're responsible for your other folks in your life too.
And you can tell, man. You can tell some of the driveways and some of the front yards. All right, that's a warrior. He's 30. He's in his 30s.
Mm-hmm.
That tricycle and those.
Yeah, the power wheels.
And all the balls and crap that are all over the lawn. You know, I mean, And
some of them are chopped up because the lawn got too long and it was hidden in there.
And the puppy that's on on some kind of leash and ring that's tied around dude, you got a lot going on. You know?
For sure.
And then, you see more cars in the driveway. I've got two neighbors with 5 cars in the driveway.
Teenagers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one failure to launch in there. So, you just start, you can see this is when we talk about these stages, there are things that give you some clues as to where a man might be, on his journey. Yeah. And, if he's got a lot of toys, he might be not a father of, I'm not talking about the kids' toys.
Adult toys. Boats
right?
and motorcycles and things. Yeah.
Maybe he's in that stage where, he's trying to compensate or accumulate some things that he didn't get when he was younger. So it's his turn to gift some things for himself or his spouse. So anyway.
The other thing that I was thinking about is you were talking about a man's story. We just came out of our King Me Advance weekend in January. Mm-hmm. And one of the exercises that the men are asked to do is called a story timeline. And I love that exercise. But as you were sharing about a man's story and going back through it, if you think about stories, I think about movies, and sometimes television. Ted Lasso is one of my favorite ones, for example. And there's a timeline of the characters as they go along. So as you do your own story timeline, what are you finding on that journey and exploration of going back through your story? Where, like, if you were watching it on a screen, that's the part of the story that would make you laugh. That's the part that would make you cringe a little bit. Yeah. That's the part of your story that would really make you weep. And honoring our stories that way is really important. And looking at it from that perspective. Because I don't know about you, man. I have a tendency to say, well, it was hard, but it wasn't that big of a deal.
Yeah. Or there's, it wasn't as bad as some people. Or at least I had a home to come home to. And that can be true.
It can be.
And at the same time, some of those things that are true like that, there's worse off folks, or there is, the heart doesn't always measure trauma and hurt and pain, disappointment, discouragement, being missed, being rejected. There's some, I get it. There can be some pretty colossal crashes and incidents, and yet, what is that? To die by 1,000 paper cuts,
which is worse.
So
neither, right? It's not the slow erosion. Comparison is not good.
The erosion that can happen over time. Yeah. Because back to these people, moving around in their moving trucks, symbolically. Mm-hmm. Guess what? The roads are full of people moving around, and I'm not sure the roads are even that well marked.
The roads aren't marked well, and half of them don't know how to drive.
And so you have a lot of a lot of characters, running into each other in these spaces, and kingdoms that are hitting. And there's stories that I told in this section that, they're not my favorite stories because some of them happened to me and later some of the things I did. But, I remember, just having in a few moments of a frustration that turned to anger in a convenience store, literally made a horrible choice. It didn't to just kind of bow up and go chest to chest with this guy in line. And my girls are right out in the Suburban, parked on the curb. We're not in a there's no fuel going or anything, but I was a run in and something happened, dude,
the girls are in the car.
They're right there in the car. I could have been on the ground. He could have been on the ground.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah,
surveillance.
Right.
Here comes the police. I mean, it's just that quick.
Yeah.
Things can go badly. And it was irresponsible is my point. And all of this, SJ, as you move on the masculine journey, there is a reality of responsibilities increase. You're taking care of more. That's your kingdom. That is your kingdom expanding. And are you able to handle, that expansion? Because I believe that, as I had a chance to look at a lot of scriptures and explore this, there is a principle that if you've been faithful with a little, you will be entrusted with more in the kingdom.
Yeah.
That God's love is not a question. That's an unconditional thing, but his trust seems to have some conditions to it.
It does.
And, the way in which we do evolve and overcome and become, that's a big theme in the book. But this section, man, is about inventory, and yes, if you own a blue book and you know what I just said, if you have a blue book, if you know what the 12 steps, to take that fierce moral inventory, to examine your life, to consider, putting it in park and like, where have I been? What's happened to me is a critical step. All the counselors, all the therapists.
Absolutely.
Why are you here? Where does it hurt? What do you want? What happened to you?
If they're worth their
salt. Sooner or later, those are the questions that are coming out. Because in my practicing of walking with men, counseling men, marriages, that's where you got to go.
So it sounds to me like there's two. Well, I'm going to ask you: are they parallel or do they kind of intertwine? The line of your story in the context of things you've done, like the Transparently, the convenience store, or, I think of my own story and, just speaking to my kid through gritted teeth and all of that, but there's that line. And then there's the line of things that happened to you. So things you did, things that happened to you. Is it kind of like a helix that's woven together? Can you go down the story timeline and the journey of the masculine journey? Yeah. Can you separate them? Is it better to try to do it that way, or do you think it depends?
Yeah. I like the woven together part. There's a lot of my professors of my heart, right? A lot of the guys who I listen to, read, watch, from Dallas Willard, the late Dallas Willard, to we were talking about John Eldridge for sure.
Lewis, Graham Cook.
Going back, Lewis and Graham Cook. Even Jordan Peterson, who is very currently, seems to be have quite the platform as he's talking about, a lot of these things. And what I feel and what I believe is that, we are all taking on impressions. We're all, if you've ever seen a run of TikTok where the 3 or 4 or 5-year-old boys and girls, some of their moves, some of their words, little kids that are swearing. Oh yeah. They heard that from somebody.
They got it from somewhere.
Okay. Yeah. So when I think about, the gritted teeth dad, I would bet heavily that his dad, maybe another authority, but somewhere along the line, that's how his heart was treated. That's how he was handled and dealt with. And so he's now a father 30 years later, may have even said, I'll never do that. Yeah. But it is in there. And oftentimes the stuff that's in there comes out.
So then
they're related.
Yeah.
They're
and
connected. One
can be a window to the other. It occurs to me, right? Like, from what you just said, if I'm that dad, well, then one of the things that we're encouraging in terms of introspection and exploration as a king is, where did I learn that?
Yeah. Who showed you that? Who taught you that? Who told you that?
Yeah.
And that's how.
And that can help you unpack and unlock some things, right?
A lot of this section is, this part of the book is about inviting a man to survey his story.
Yeah.
And I know that I haven't interpreted all of my life accurately. I just do, and that's a question we ask at this onset of every conference.
Sure.
And it's asked in this book. What are the odds that you've interpreted your life accurately? And, I just don't run into not one person in all the crowds. Oh yeah.
I got it.
I'm 8 million for 8 million.
Yeah.
Interpretations from birth to now. And so that just means, SJ, that there is some margin, if not some really expansive room for misinterpretation, or what we would call believing something that's not true, and that's something that's false, and now you're talking about a lie. And so how many lies does it take to keep a man down?
Right.
And our experience is just a couple.
Yeah, not many.
A couple of the bigger ones, and usually they come in the packages of guilt, shame, and fear, accusation, diminishment, and what those things are ultimately doing, and why we have to see our life and our story and our journey and take inventory there, is because you want to see what of this stuff is operational. Like you said, what is coming up? The old saying, "What's in the well, comes out in the bucket."
Jay Stott. I heard that from the first time. Right? Yeah.
And he stole it from
someone in
great
Johnston
farmer.
County.
Yeah. So you get it, that that's why we're going here in this part, that for you to become a good king, you need to get the things off of you or out of you that aren't good. And if there are some things that have happened to you that aren't, what kind of influence, what kind of effect, what kind of infection are they having? It's the physical realm plays out the spiritual realm realities. It's not vice versa.
Right.
There's a war taking place in the spiritual realm, kingdom of light, kingdom of darkness. So there are wars here.
Of course.
There are whispers of falsehoods. There are guilt, shame, fear, accusation, all those things we talked about. And that's how that battle's played, playing off the game checkers. There's a way. You cannot go
right. Straight
across. You cannot go vertically or horizontally.
You can't go straight.
There's a way the game is played, and there's a way this game is played. And so that's another part that we'll get to. Most men don't know. We finished, I think, we finished part one with the larger story. You have to understand where your kingdom is, and where it's literally geographically placed in the spiritual realm as well as in the physical, how it plays out.
Yeah.
And if you don't understand that, your kingdom's opposed, your kingdom is being threatened. As a matter of fact, they're working on the inside of your kingdom, in and through these wounded places. And we were just talking the other day. I really believe that what a man really is made for, what a man really wants in this reigning and ruling, they want mission, they want purpose, they want a cause. And we had talked about, we're actually somehow, some way equipped, built in which we can suffer, we can endure.
Yeah.
And we want to do that so our family doesn't. We want to do that so our wife won't.
Yeah. At the same time, it's almost a necessary part of the masculine journey.
Yeah.
The feminine too.
Yeah.
For there to be some suffering to overcome. It's the hero's journey. It's the heroine's journey. And it's a part of our story here in Middle Earth, right?
Yes, right.
In the in-between.
And all those characters are in their own story, but they're part of a much larger story. And so that's a great, I think that's a great beginning of trying to describe the weightiness, the significance, and the invitation that's in this part of the book.
Yeah. Well, let's take a break. Yep. And then what I'd love to talk about when we come back is in the opening part of this are the different ways of demonstrating the masculine journey
and the masculine heart, right?
Yeah, and the masculine heart. So,
okay.
We can, and we'll have those up on the screen as we talk about them. But
nice.
When we come back, we'll get into that.
All right, we'll be right back.
In a flash, a pathway emerges, just a few moves away. It's on the tip of your tongue. Just one more move and you can say it. King me. Follow Michael Thompson on Amazon to be alerted when the book is available.
You can welcome him back. Go ahead.
Yeah, welcome back from the break there. I don't know what you just heard to, but it's awesome, whatever it was. I don't know what our promo is.
What our commercial is.
Is it Deepening Weekend?
Oh, King Me is the book?
Oh, it's the King Me. You can say it so they can hear you, Caleb. Yeah, we're promoting the book. This is still the advanced, uncorrected reader's copy, but the promo is for the book. So go to Amazon and check that out. Yeah. But thanks, Caleb. I'm glad somebody knows what we're doing.
What we're doing.
So, okay, nice. Great. Cool deal. So the 4 views on the 6 stages is right here in the first part of this part of the book.
Yeah.
So the linear timeline is the first one, and we should be able to get that up on the screen here so our listeners, our watchers, know what we're talking about. Talk a little bit about the linear view.
If you know developmental psychology, the stages of anything. You build a house. What's the first stage?
Yeah, site prep, like the dirt.
You're going to clear it.
Yeah,
and then it's footers and foundation, right? Yeah. So there's stages to to so many things. So that concept is what's the timeline of this project?
And we tend to think of time in a linear fashion,
and that's kind of what we did there. So, foundational, formative years, the first, and we tried to address them, especially in this diagram, with a timeline, and where about every decade or so, you're shifting into another stage. So boyhood, 1 to 10, 0 to 10, and those are the infancy and the world that you were born into. What was going on with mom and dad? Yeah. Were they in a safe environment? Was she a single mom at that point? Pregnant with you? I mean, there's a story that you're born into.
Yeah.
So when you think about your masculine journey, what conditions, did you find yourself entering into this story?
Yeah.
And then, there's a lot that happens to a boy from, infancy to 10 years old. So, but that's boyhood, and lots of things in there about that. And then you go into the next stage, which is the explorer stage. And the explorer is just that, the training wheels are off. You're getting permission to move kind of outside of your parents' domain, your yard, the fenced-in places. I mean, we have lots of boyhood stories from the 70s. I mean, you get a bike
and a piece of plywood.
You're running. Yes, you're running with your friends,
making ramps and
I remember houses being built, around our house when my dad built one. Well, that is a playground, man. There are nails that they're not using, and every now and then they're leaving pop bottles, Coke bottles, and you're getting the deposits. So anyway,
dirt piles.
So it's boyhood, part 2 is the explorer, and then you start to see some things. It would be ideal if it was every 10 years, but some boys enter into the warrior stage earlier than others for a variety of reasons, whether they're bullied or they were the bully. Or somehow, some way, maybe mom or dad left. And
responsibility
changes and shifts, and you start to realize the world is not a kind place, and you're going to have to learn to defend yourself. That's kind of that warrior stage.
Yeah.
And if you run across other boys that they got to the warrior stage prematurely, they're probably in your junior high class, and they're gonna summon you into it. So there is something about the questions in those stages. The boy wants to know if you see me, and do you love what you see?
Yeah.
Do you want to be with me? The explorer is about how do things work? what an adventure, an exploration, and the pretend, can get really wonderfully up there.
Yeah,
and
that's when you see boys wearing capes.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
and then you come into this warrior stage, which is a critical stage of strength, and how do you have strength? That's the question. Am I strong? Can I come through? Do I have what it takes? As we've heard for years, and so how those questions are answered at every stage. This is part of the linear process.
Yeah,
and what goes unanswered or what goes answered negatively or badly, that will affect that masculine heart, and he'll carry it into the next stage. So then comes the king stage after the warrior, and then I'll back up in 1 minute and catch a stage that's really expansive. But after warrior comes king, and then after king comes elder sage, and then
which we did an episode on
not too long ago.
Yeah, you got to go back and watch
the Elder Sage Initiative is something that
with
we
Jim
really,
Shanae and Jimmy Mack
to see honor, restored to men, and starting with elder sages, so that they could then bestow honor to younger generations. That's one of our strategies that we feel like God's given us to go into
get those guys
the masculine battle.
Yeah, we got to get them out of the bleachers.
Yep, and so. But then there's this linear stage that's the lover stage. Well, we were made for love. We were made by love, the Trinity, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. They're in love, and you look just at the scriptures. They want to catch us up in all that. So the lover stage is a stage that actually is present in all the stages, because love is that central, love is that core, and it is strong. And it is kind, it is fierce, right? And it is tender. And so all of that, a man needs to know how to love, what love is, and to be loved is really the critical place in order to then love. If you weren't, shown or taught well, it's going to be difficult for you to show and tell well.
Sure.
So that's the linear spaces. And so that's more of a diagram, I think, of the journey itself, the masculine journey itself, and then there's some of these other components.
Yeah, so. I like the linear one because, like I said, I think we all have a tendency to think of time as a linear thing.
Yeah.
But when you talk about the concepts of these different stages and how they build upon one another, this next one, building on the foundation that you'll see on the screen here in a second. That demonstrates it. I think the concept that we're trying to communicate better than any other, because I just see the boyhood, the beloved son on the bottom, and man, if that's off, if that isn't set right, and there's a problem there, that problem grows exponentially the higher you get.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So for good or so the foundation, those fundamental formative years. That's so. Yeah, if they've seen it on the picture, we can move on. But that what I would say here is it's not only does it move linear in time. To your point, it also the masculine journey and the masculine heart move in that construction.
Right.
Space.
Foundation to roof.
Yeah. Bad materials, bad and challenging or hard
something
or bad environments.
Level. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And
or
so
plum.
You're 100%. Every stage needs craftsmanship, needs care, and needs a plan. I mean, when we were kids, it's just about getting the two 2x4s together with as big a nail as we possibly can.
Yeah.
But when you
and
see
a wrench
when
usually
you see
rather
a craftsman
than a hammer.
like Greg, who when he creates one of his live edge tables, I don't make tables like that.
No.
I didn't learn how to do that.
Right.
I wasn't an apprentice in that space, and yet I can absolutely appreciate that what he's doing there as a craftsman. So that's a really important part of the pieces that are being built upon, and the opportunity to at some point reflect back on what happened in that stage.
Yeah. So the next part, or the next diagram, is the parts form a whole, and it's It's in the shape of a heart, as hopefully you can see here on the screen. And it's really interesting that the lover is the center part of this one.
Yeah.
So just comment on that one a little bit.
Yeah, on purpose. That's what we were made for.
Yeah.
To, if Jesus said, when asked, what's the greatest commandment? Love each other, love one another, love God, love with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. There's a core of our being that's what we were made for by the Trinity, to be in love with them, to be in love with God, to experience love from God. And in those early years, right, that task is given to two image bearers, the masculine and the feminine image bearer.
Yeah.
Dad and mom.
Right.
Father and mother. And so that the authority that they have over a child, the environment of which that child is being brought up in love, that's going to affect deeply that child's ability to love. And if those questions aren't answered, those other parts, get compromised. And what those parts why we went there was, have you ever heard or seen or witnessed a boy? So he's in a different stage. He's in a foundational stage on that diagram, and he's in the first 10 years. But have you ever seen or heard a boy say something profound?
Sure.
Through even their naive observation, they make a conclusion that is beyond their years.
Right.
That's a part of his heart that can recognize this is right, this is good, this shouldn't be. So when he says, why are they doing that to that person? There's a little warrior part of him that's getting a little fired up.
Right.
It's not the stage he's in, but the part is in there.
Right.
I believe we come in with all the parts.
The masculine heart is there.
One more question. Have you ever seen older dudes playing like kindergartners?
Sure.
Right? Recess?
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, we just witnessed some of the guys in the elder sage show up at a little gathering. And I told you, I said, it was like the fourth grade was coming in for their uniforms. They were going to get some equipment, and they're picking their numbers, and they want to pick a position they play on the field.
Yep.
And they're 70-year-olds.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
And so that's what that is about.
Cool. So similarly, I guess then is the one you call, this is the Grinch one, right? Because it looks like an expanding heart. So same idea, but why the different? Why is this one different? Yeah,
because it's kind of almost a timeline, a combination of a lot of them.
An expansion.
And it looks, if they've seen it on the screen, it almost looks like the rings of a tree. Right. Over the timeline.
Yeah.
And one gives way to the other, and the growth. And you've seen it's a marvelous examination. I'm not an expert, but when you really start to look at the life of a tree, the rings, the scars, the winter, I mean, it records everything.
Yeah. Sometimes if you take a cross section, you'll see a nail. In there that's been there for 100 years, or
you can even predict not only the age of the tree, but what it has sustained. Is it healthy, and the darkness or the light of certain rings, how far they are, how wide they are, is it healthy? It's just fascinating.
Did it get a lot of water that year, and a lot of sunlight, or a little bit?
It's telling a story about the environments and stuff, and then like you said. There's that who can forget, right? The Grinch and his small heart, and then he is affected, right, by generosity, by joy, by thankfulness, and he's witnessing this in Whoville, right? And the Grinch can't be contained. Maybe Christmas is about something more than packages and ribbons and bows. And so you see that. I mean, the old cartoon tears me up.
Oh, yeah.
Even Jim Carrey rolling around in his exaggerated Grinch. I loved it. But that's the effect of goodness on a creature that, was retreating and bitter and angry and he becomes something more.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we're trying to get, because all four of those, I believe, SJ, are true, and probably even others in terms of examining, well, what does the masculine journey look like, and what's the masculine heart look like? That's what we were after in this part of the book, is trying to bring some color and definition and diagram. So those who need some word pictures, this is their chapter, right?
I think it's very helpful, man. And so the other thing I think is very helpful too, and I want to encourage our listeners and watchers to do, we're going to include a link to the story timeline exercise in the description. And so it's just a PDF. You can click on it, download it, print it out. But it really is a guided kind of a journey through your story timeline. And, if you have questions about that, shoot us an email, exploringmore@zoweh.org. How does this work? How am I supposed to do this?
Yeah.
And we'd be happy to help you do it, because it's a really worthy exercise.
What I love about that we're sharing that is there's some excerpts from the book, and we were doing that before there was a book. So there's parts of that actually made the book. What does this look like in every stage?
Yeah.
In a paragraph? What's it look like when it gets hurt or wounded or compromised? And then how does it recover? So every one of these stages have, 400 or 500 words in that exercise that allows for some orientation as to why am I doing this? And then when you start to bring all the different, and we don't bring them all, but 7 or 8, critical characters in your story, and just inviting you to remember teachers that were good, teachers that weren't, and what did that, coaches that weren't, priests or pastors. I mean, there's
friends that turned to enemies, and all of that. Siblings.
So,
it's an amazing tapestry.
Quite a host of characters in our stories, and we're in there, and we're in theirs.
That's right.
So
that's right.
Yeah. What does that look and feel like even now? And a lot of that exercise, I think, is something most of us haven't thought about that in a long time.
Yep.
And it's interesting when you invite somebody to think that what they feel, kind of this, where's it stored in them? And when it's a chance to come up, some of those things were never really able to be processed, and could be honored if you have a culture of honor that can listen well, and you can bring those to God. And I think this is a chapter of collecting the dots.
Yeah. So
that, they can be connected in some ways that maybe you would have never thought of. But yet God has some surprises. So
yeah, that's great, man. Well, a couple housekeeping things. We want to ask you to share on your podcast platform of choice, leave us a rate, review, subscribe here on YouTube. That really helps us to get found. And if you got comments, leave them below. Send us an email, like I said, at exploringmore@zoweh.org. And any final thoughts on this part 2?
It's going to be okay.
Yeah.
These examinations and reflections and kind of collecting and looking back it's part 2, isn't so you stay there, but it's so you can go forward. And, the idea of maybe you think you're, kind of bringing your luggage forward through this process. No, you've pretty much been bringing your luggage forward, your bags anyway. And so this is about...
You're just used to the weight of dragging them,
that's right? This is about freedom and being free.
Yeah.
And the process of getting free. What is God's process? What's his offer? What's his invitation to, and we've seen some fun, crazy, cool stuff of God validating men in these stages that they didn't get any. And helping a man, have an environment where, maybe I'm thinking of some of at our conferences that we get to, we have the shotguns or the fly fishing, or, we talked about having a Pinewood Derby,
we did talk about that. Yeah.
Take men back
Yeah, we've done paintball. We've done all that.
A lot of things. And it's amazing what can get in the way of a man's yes or his willing to try. I've never caught a fish. We want to make sure he gets a good chance. And so he gets to learn how. And the process is, we take away that I wasn't taught. My dad left when we were 4. I did, and to shoot a shotgun for the first time, or
hit a target. Yeah,
so many different things that we've seen God do to affirm and validate and say, "See, this wasn't your fault. He didn't. There wasn't anything wrong with you. And that's your dad's story, or that's your grandpa's story. When you were, in the garage and you saw some fishing rods and you picked one up, you got yelled at.
Right. Sure.
And so, I don't like fishing. No, you don't like getting yelled at.
Right.
And so what is it to reclaim some of that lost ground? Now, you may genuinely not like fishing. But you get the point that, what are the odds we've interpreted accurately? So I think, this is about bringing those parts of my heart to God and what I have experienced God do to me, for me, with me. And I don't think I'm the only one. I don't think I'm the anomaly. I think that there's an offer here to heal the brokenhearted and set the captives free from Luke 4 and Isaiah 61, and to partner with him in that, So when the door opens, you move out of there and move with him into this exploration of who he meant when he met you. Yeah. So
I love it, man. Hey, final word for you. Zoweh is a crowd-funded nonprofit organization, and so if you would like to join us as a financial partner, visit zoweh.org/give. Thank you for listening, and please, like I said, like, share, subscribe, all the different things, so that more and more people can find the message of more love, more life, more freedom. Yeah, we appreciate it.
We do. We appreciate it. We'll see you next time on the Exploring More podcast. We hope you have enjoyed this episode of Exploring More. The landing page for this podcast is zoweh.org/podcast. That's ZOWEH.org/podcast, where you can find the show notes and various platforms to which we broadcast. You can also find us and the Life of More by visiting Zoweh on YouVersion Bible app, Right Now Media, our Facebook page, and Zoweh on Instagram and Twitter. Remember, with God there is always more, and you were made for more.